Hi there. In this video, I'm going to explain how the DonDivi Gallery module works, a module that will allow you to create all types of galleries in a completely customizable and responsive way. Next, I will show you some demos, but first I want to tell you that it is a module that is included within the DonDivi Builder plugin. If you want to have more information about this plugin or the modules it includes, I invite you to visit dondivi.com. But as I say, in this video, I will focus on the DonDivi Gallery module. Then I will show you some demos currently available on the DonDivi website that could serve as inspiration. The first demo is an image gallery that you can filter by the categories you define in advance. The second demo will allow you to show titles and captions when hovering over each of the different thumbnails. You can also choose to show or hide both the title and the caption when opening images in the lightbox. The next demo shows the images in a masonry format instead of a grid format. As you can see, the icons shown when hovering over the images are completely customizable. We could also add a Load More button that reveals more images when clicked. The last demo shows pagination under the gallery and also a different link for each image, that is, instead of opening in a lightbox, they will open any defined URL. Okay, I'm going to enter the Visual Builder to show you this module from within. Well, I'm going to add the DonDivi Gallery module. For this, I will write directly Don. And as you can see, Divi automatically suggests all the modules included within the DonDivi Builder plugin. In this case, I will choose DonDivi Gallery, and the module settings are automatically displayed. First of all, I will choose the images from my media library for this gallery. As you can see, when selecting any image from my library, the fields with the details of the image are displayed on the right, such as the title or the subtitle that you can enter from here, and that later from the module settings we can show or hide. But this module also adds here 3 new fields: DonDivi Media Categories. To enter the category we want to assign to our image. These categories must previously be created from our WordPress. That is, if we go to our main menu, we can see the new option DonDivi Categories, from where we can create, like any other WordPress category, the categories of our images. In this case, men and women. As you can see, each category will have in addition to the name a slug, which will usually be the same name in lowercase. This will be the name you should enter in your media library. That is, it will be the name that we should write here. The next field is DonDivi Destination URL, the field where to enter the URL that we want the user to be directed to when clicking on the image thumbnail, instead of opening the image in the lightbox. Finally, the DonDivi Featured Image field that will allow us to choose this image as a featured image to later customize it from the module by applying some specific styles. Well, now I will choose the first block of 8 images to create our DonDivi gallery. As you can see, the 8 images have been automatically loaded, but to be able to fully visualize the gallery and explain each of the fields to you better, from the Design tab I am going to modify the number of columns to 4. Of course, all fields are responsive. That is, we could define 5 columns for desktop, but 4 or 3 columns for tablet and phone. In this case, we are going to leave it at 4. Well, from the Content tab, I will now explain to you what each of the fields is for. The first of them is the image count, from where we can limit the number of images we want to be displayed simultaneously. In this case, I'm going to write 6, and automatically, a pagination will be displayed under the gallery, although we could also replace it with the Load More button as soon as we add any title to the new button. That is, we could deactivate pagination and only show the Load More button. As you can see, when you click, the rest of the images are automatically added. In this case, I am going to reset the default values. The next field is the image order, which allows you to choose by order of age, alphabetical order, or random. That is, every time the page loads, the images are arranged in a different new order. I will again leave the default values. The next filterable gallery field allows you to display at the top of the gallery the categories that we have previously seen, so that when you click on each of them, only the images that belong to that specific category are shown. I will leave the field disabled again. In the next group, we find everything related to the images in our gallery. Firstly, the size drop-down of the images, which by default has the full option selected, but that we could take advantage of to choose among other sizes available in our WordPress. For example, it might be convenient to choose the 150 by 150 cropped format in case you want to make a kind of square thumbnail grid. I will leave it in its default value. If we activate the zoom option, the thumbnails will enlarge when hovering over them. If we activate the overlay, an overlay with the color we define will also be displayed over our images. The show title and show caption options will display both the title and the caption defined from the media library on the overlay. Finally, from the on-click field, we can choose what behavior we want our images to have when clicking on them. That is, we can open the lightbox, which would be the most common behavior of a gallery. But we could also choose to open a URL, the URL previously defined from the media library. If we choose Open in Lightbox, the Show Title in Lightbox and Show Caption in Lightbox fields will be displayed. That is, we can show both the title and the subtitle when clicking on each image at the bottom of the lightbox. Or we can deactivate them, and then they will not be displayed. If instead we choose the Open URL option, when the user clicks, the image will open the URL previously defined from the media library. Well, I'm going to explain to you the fields under the Design tab. The first group is Gallery, although I've already shown it briefly before, modifying from here the number of gallery columns. But the first field is called Layout, and from the selector we can choose either Grid or Masonry. But to better explain the difference between the two, I'm going to change some images in the current gallery to have different sizes. I'm going to remove some of these images and I'm going to choose a horizontal image. As you can see, it has a different size, so I'm also going to move it to another position to see the effect even better. I go back to the Design tab and choose the Grid option. As you can see in this layout, the images are arranged in a grid, placing each of the images within a cell of the same size. That is, all the cells are the same size and the image is placed within each cell. In the case of the Masonry layout, the images are distributed automatically, filling all the gaps according to the criterion defined from the horizontal order field. That is, if we leave the default order of Masonry layout, the images will be distributed from left to right, and when reaching the end of the line, the next image will jump line, and will be automatically placed filling the first available hole, as this image does here. But if we activate the horizontal order option, the image instead will occupy the first position of the next line. If you have any doubts about this layout, I recommend you take a look at the module documentation, where we have prepared a graph that shows both options much clearer. As you can see, this is the order of the images we are seeing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the next image, 6, automatically places itself in the first available lower hole. Image 7 is placed in the next lower hole, and so on the 8, the 9, and the 10. That is, the images are distributed from left to right and from top to bottom. While if we activate the horizontal order option, the image that jumps line automatically occupies the first position of the lower line. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Well, the next field is the gap. This is the separation between the images of the gallery that we can increase or reduce, of course, also in a responsive way. We can also use the margin and padding fields to modify the default values of the gallery container. Next, I'm going to choose the grid layout again to explain the following image fields. First, we find the image alignment and fit to container options. But to better understand this field, I will modify the current gallery images again. I have chosen an image from my media library that is actually smaller than the width of any of these images. I go back to the Design tab and to the Images group. If I now deactivate the Fit to Container field, you can see that the image takes its real size. So, Now we can align it to the center or the right of that container. The next field will allow us to round the edges or even add any thickness, color, or style. Although I will leave the default style again. To explain the following fields, I will choose the previous images again. Well, from the overlay option, we can define the color of our overlay and also its transparency. We can choose any icon to display it over our overlay. Any color, any size, or even define a padding for our overlay. We could also define the text styles for both the title and the caption. Next, to explain the following field, featured image, I'm going to edit the gallery again. In this case, I will remove some images, and I will choose this as my featured image. So I access the library, select this image, and go down to the last field, featured image, to activate the corresponding checkbox. Well, I go back to the featured image field. And now I can define the number of columns that I want this featured image to occupy. Of course, in a responsive way. If you are an advanced user and want to further customize the featured image, you can do it from the custom CSS fields that you will find under the Advanced tab. Here, you can add some additional style to the featured image, such as a red border, or you can also add any other pseudo element. Well, let's go back to defining the initial images of our gallery. To explain the following fields, I will reactivate the fields related to pagination. I will write here 6. I will activate the pagination fields, the Load More button, and also the filters. Now I will explain how you can style each of them. Now under the Design tab, we have the Navigation and Load More groups. From Navigation, you can style both the filters and the pagination. To the filters, we can assign a desktop background color and also choose a hover color that will be the one shown when the category or filters are in their active state, so that it is clearly differentiated from the rest of the categories. We can also align these filters as we want. Choose rounded edges, or even edit the separation with respect to the gallery. Similarly, we can style both the button and the pagination. We can also edit the pagination by modifying its colors, its alignment, even also the separation, both with respect to the gallery and between its own elements. Finally, I will explain how you can modify the animations applied when clicking between the different filters. By default, as you can see, the zoom animation is applied. But I'm going to choose the slide right effect. I can decrease its intensity. I can also add an opacity effect to it. And of course, I can modify its duration set in milliseconds. You can see the effect by clicking on the different filters, and as you can see, the new effect created is now applied. That's all. I hope you liked it and that you can get the most out of your new DonDivi Gallery module. See you soon.